Hey guys, so this is a very first for me. I have this book. It's called Bronx Masquerade. I love to read this book with my classes. Unfortunately, lately I haven't had time to really sit down and read together with students. So I'm wondering if maybe I can do this a little bit virtually. So this is a test run of this. This is the cover of the book. So I want you to take a few minutes and just guess about what you think this book might be about based on the image you're seeing on the screen. Okay, so I'll be reading those later. Now I want to start reading. And our first page says Wesley Bad Boy Boone. And I'm just going to read it and then we'll stop and talk basically after every paragraph and make sure you're getting it. Maybe I'll ask some questions so I can make sure you're following along. I ain't particular about doing homework, you understand. My teachers practically faint whenever I turn something in. Matter of fact, I've probably got the longest list of excuses for missing homework of anyone alive, except for my homie Tyrone. He tries to act like he's not even interested in school, like there's no point in studying hard or dreaming about tomorrow or bothering to graduate. He's got his reasons. I keep on him about going to school though, saying I need the company. Besides, if he drops out and gets a job, he won't have any time to work on his songs. That always gets him. Tyrone might convince everyone else that he's all through with dreaming, but I know he wants to be a big hip hop star. He's just afraid he won't live long enough to do it. Me, I hardly ever think about checking out. I'm more worried about figuring out what I want to do if I live. So, who do you think you're more like? Are you more like um, Wesley, where you don't think about dying? Or are you more like Tyrone, where you think about dying? Just wondering. We're going to go on to the next one, the next paragraph. Okay. So I noticed I scrolled down there, and now we're on the second half of the first page. Anyways, I haven't had to drag Tyrone off to school lately or make any excuses for not having my homework done because I've been doing it. It's the Harlem Renaissance stuff that got us both going. We spent a month reading poetry from the Harlem Renaissance in our English class. Then Mr. Ward, that's our teacher, asked us to write an essay about it. Make sense to you? Me neither. I mean, what's the point of studying poetry and then writing essays? So I wrote a bunch of poems instead. They weren't too shabby, considering I only done a few rap pieces before. My favorite was about Langston Hughes. How was I to know Teach would ask me to read it aloud? But I did. Knees knocking like a skeleton on Halloween. Embarrassment bleaching my black cheeks red. My eyes stapled to the page in front of me. I don't know if you saw that, but my cat just peeked around the corner of my computer. He's wondering why I'm talking to no one. I love this paragraph. First of all, this part. Knees knocking like a skeleton on Halloween. Do you guys know what that's called? If you said simile, you were right. Embarrassment bleaching my black cheeks red. Do you guys know what that's like? Or what that is? What type of figurative language that is? And figurative language is just a fancy word for saying something that isn't exactly red like it is, because his cheeks did not get bleached red. So it's not literal. And one more that I love. Eyes stapled to the page in front of me. Do you guys know what that's called? I'm going to tell you. Okay, so like a skeleton is a simile, because that's a comparison that uses like or as. Embarrassment bleaching my brown cheeks red is a metaphor, or maybe imagery, because I guess you could sort of picture his cheeks draining of color and then turning red. I say a metaphor because he's comparing his cheeks to something that could be bleached. I don't know. Maybe it's more of imagery. Imagery is when you try to describe something using really colorful language. But metaphor is a comparison that does not use like or as. So I'm kind of in between on that one. But eyes stapled to the page in front of me. Man, I love that line. That is great line. Such great writing. Okay. Obviously, your eyes cannot be stapled to a page. So this is definitely an exaggeration. We call that hyperbole because if you stapled your eyes to the page, they would bleed. Okay? Okay, so this one, I'm going to transition to the next section. And this might be a little odd because I have to go to the next page. So just bear with me. Guess what? Nobody laughed. Well, that's pretty cool. He read his poem and no one laughed. Sorry, I'm not supposed to interject while I'm reading. In fact, everyone thought it was cool. By the time I got back to my seat, the other kids were, this is where I knew I was going to have to transition, shouting out, "Mr. Ward, I got a poem too. Can I bring it in to read?" Teach cocked his head to the side like he was hearing something that nobody else did. How many people have poems they'd like to read? Ooh, that makes it hard for me to read. I'm right here. How many people have poems they'd like to read? He asked. 3 hands shot up. Mr. Ward rubbed his chin for a minute. Okay, bring them with you tomorrow. After class, Teach came to my desk. Great poem, said Mr. Ward, but I expect to see an essay from you tomorrow. An essay from you. I'll give you another week. Well, he's nicer than I was. I was saying tomorrow. So much for creative expression. What kind of teacher do you think Mr. Ward is? Just answer me in one kind of word or another. Now I want you to look back through this passage and see if there's anything that supports your idea of what kind of teacher he is. What does he do that makes you think he's the kind of teacher you said he is? Okay, so hopefully you've written something down there or put something down in Edpuzzle. So some of the reasons, I think Mr. Ward's a good teacher. And here's one of the reasons why I think Mr. Ward is a good teacher, right? Because he listens to his students, right? He asks them, how many people have poems you'd like to read? And 3 hands shoot up, and he says, bring them with you tomorrow. So he's letting his kids have free expression and read in front of the class. I think that's pretty awesome. I think it's awesome he's looking for his kids, listening to his kids. So that, I think, shows that he's a good teacher. But that's not the only thing. You could have said other things. For example, I could also say he's a pretty strict teacher, because even though he read the poem and encouraged that, he still expects the essay from Tyrone. So he's strict. He has high expectations for his students too. He doesn't let his students get away with not doing the work. So I think he's a good teacher. Okay, now we're going to read the poem that Leslie Boone read to the class. It's called Long Live Langston. And this is going to be kind of hard because I want to read the whole poem at once and I'm going to have to flip pages. So I moved my face over there. So this is called, I'm going to go out a little bit. Long Live Langston by Wesley Boone. Trumpeter of Lennox and 7th, through Jesse B. Simple, you simply created blues and bebop and being black before it was hip. You dipped into the muddy waters of the Harlem River and shouted, taste and see, that we black folk be good at fanning hope and stoking the fires of dreams deferred. You made sure the world heard about the beauty of maple sugar children, the artfully tattooed backs of black sailors venturing out to foreign places. Your sweet flypaper life led us past the Apollo and on through 125th and all the other Harlem streets you knew like the black of your hand. You were the Pied Piper, brother man, with poetry as your flute. It's my honor and my pleasure to salute you, a true Renaissance man of Harlem. I messed up the ending on that. Okay, there's so much that I love about this poem. Tell me anything you notice. I'm going to give you a point for anything that you noticed. You can tell me anything you noticed in the poem. And then I'm going to talk to you about some of the things I noticed. So we're starting at the top. Long Live Langston. First off, great title. So when you use the same letter to begin all of the words, that's called alliteration. So Long Live Langston is alliteration, and Wesley uses lots of alliteration, and I really like how it sounds. Did anyone see any other examples of alliteration in the poem when you read it? Okay, so maybe you said the blues and bebop and being black before it was considered hip. That's definitely alliteration. Maybe you saw some alliteration I didn't pick up Oh, like I just noticed, dreams deferred is alliteration too. Okay. But I can admire the language, but what is he talking about? So, trumpeter of Lennox and Seventh through Jesse B. Simple. So, trumpeter is someone who plays music, which is not really what Langston was. He's sort of using a metaphor here, right? He's saying that Langston made a song, okay? And Jesse B. Simple was one of Langston's characters. And then he goes on to explain even more. He says Langston celebrated blues and bebop and being black before it was considered hip. I think that's pretty clear. You know, he celebrated everything that it was to be in the Harlem Renaissance at that time. You dipped into the muddy waters of the Harlem River and shouted, taste and see. Well, this is definitely figurative language. He didn't literally drink the muddy waters, right? But he went to Harlem and he found the people there and said it was good, right? We're good at fanning hope, at stoking the fires of dreams deferred. So much hopeful language there. I really love it. You made sure the world heard about the beauty of brown sugar children and the artfully tattooed backs of blacks. Oh, look, here's some more alliteration, right? So he's talking about how beautiful children are, even with, and I shouldn't say even with, but he's pointing out that people before that weren't pointing out that maple sugar children were beautiful. So this is really something that Langston Hughes did, was point out the beauty of all people. Okay. And then we have sailors venturing out to foreign places. So if you read about Langston Hughes' life, he actually went off and became a sailor at one point. That's a crazy story. I highly encourage you to read it, but that's what he's talking about. He's talking about Langston Hughes' life and some of the things he wrote about. Okay. Your sweet flypaper of life led us past the Apollo. The Apollo Theater is another thing that's in Harlem. You might have heard of Live at the Apollo. That was like when it was starting to take off when Langston was there, okay? On 125th and the other Harlem streets you knew like the black of your hand. Oh my goodness, okay? Like the black of your hand. He does something that is really cool here, because he turns this phrase, which is, you know something like the back of your hand. That's something everyone knows. You might call that a cliche. So cliches are phrases that everyone knows that are kind of boring. They're kind of throwaway. They don't really add anything. However, he turns back into black, and now he is saying something unique and interesting and gets my attention. You were the Pied Piper brother man with poetry as your flute. Okay, so he's saying that Langston Hughes is a musician because he's doing poetry as his music. I love the idea of poetry as music because I'm a poet. It is my honor and pleasure to salute you, a true Renaissance man of Harlem. Love the fact that he capitalized you. Okay? This is one of the things I love about poetry. There are no rules. Okay? You can capitalize any letter you want, anytime you want, for any reason you want. So grammatically, there's no reason to capitalize you. But that you told me to stress that when I said it. To salute you, a true Renaissance man of Harlem. Anyway, I think that's a great poem, and I hope you learned a little bit about poetry, and I hope you like it a little bit, okay? So, did you like reading this with me? Is this something you'd like to try again? Let me know. Leave me an answer, and I look forward to sharing this with you and talking to you about it tomorrow. Bye.